Delighted that Maduro has been captured and extracted. I wished we'd been able to do that in 2018, 2019, when the opposition tried to overthrow Maduro. We have significant American national security interests at stake. However, this is maybe step one of a much longer process. Maduro's gone. The regime is still in place, according, again, to limited information. Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, Vladimir Padrino, the defense minister, Jorge Rodriguez, the president of the National Assembly, are still in place. And it's interesting, we'll know more when Trump speaks at 11, but the president's rationale is a law enforcement rationale. There is the warrant for Maduro's arrest. The operation is said to have been carried out largely by law enforcement personnel with protective support from the military. And as you just noted, Hegseth and Rubio had briefed Congress that regime change was not the answer. So I'm not sure how much more there is to celebrate. I'm glad Maduro is gone.
Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So, for those wondering, that was John Bolton. I just played that clip of John Bolton being very happy that Nicolas Maduro, the former president of Venezuela, is no longer the president of Venezuela. And if John Bolton's happy, that probably means not good things are happening. But before we get into it all, I need you to do something for me, folks. Please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever the hell you listen to your podcast. My podcast is available there. And if you are listening on YouTube, also like and comment. Helps with the algorithm. I would so greatly appreciate it. And yeah, so let's get into it. So I just played the clip of John Bolton, being super happy that Nicolas Maduro is gone. And for those who don't know, John Bolton is like the neocons of all neocons. He's like more neocon than George W. Bush, if that's possible. More neocon than Dick Cheney. It's ridiculous. And this John Bolton, he has his gay-ass mustache. It's, terrible. Nothing wrong with mustaches, but his is, ridiculous. He's, from the 70s. He really looks like he belongs in the 1970s. Not 2026, but whatever. We don't judge people's physical appearances on this podcast, unless you're Marco Rubio with those big-ass ears. But other than that, it's not. We don't criticize people's appearances, folks. Not on this podcast. I'm above that. Literally, I'm over 6'3". I'm above everything. But John Bolton is super excited that Nicolas Maduro is no longer the president of Venezuela. And he talks about, and it's true, that there was pressure during Trump's first term to try to overthrow Maduro because there was, as Bolton said in the clip, there was sort of a movement to get him out of office or get him out of power back in 2018, 2019. Now, the reason why I play the clip is because there's a lot of people on the conservative side, on the pro-Trump side, on the MAGA side, the quote-unquote America First side that is okay or thinks it's a good thing what we did in Venezuela the other day. And look, I'm happy that we're not in a full-on regime change war currently. That's good. And if all we did was take out Maduro, then wiped our hands clean of it, I don't think that would have been fair to the Venezuelan people, but I would have been okay with it because we're not involved anymore. We took out Maduro. I think that's unnecessary, but we took him out, so we wipe our hands clean of it and we're done. But that's not what's happening here. Trump, when he gave his press conference the other day, he talked about how we're gonna not only we're going to rebuild Venezuela. He said that we're going to rebuild their infrastructure. I think he even said that we're going to make Venezuela great again. He said that we may be committing troops to the ground. And he's threatening that if the people, I think the vice president of Venezuela, if she doesn't go along with what the United States wants, that we may take her out. I mean, this could very quickly turn into a shit show. And you even had senators I think Tom Cotton talking about how we may have to have more troops on the ground. This whole thing could escalate very quickly, even though, yes. And by the way, it's very clear what happened with Nicolas Maduro. There were people in his inner circle that betrayed him. That's why we were able to take him out so quickly without, a massive war. Because clearly people betrayed him. They sold him out. That's why we were able to get him so quickly. But that's not going to happen here going forward with the rest of the Venezuelan government, people who may be still loyal to the regime. So if we're really going to force an actual regime change, not just taking out Maduro, but getting out anyone else associated with his regime, that probably is going to lead to a prolonged conflict. And I don't think we want that, folks. And and you know who was against regime change was Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was against regime change. Charlie Kirk, back during this past summer in June, when there was all this tension between the United States and Iran, Charlie Kirk tweeted this when Tom Tillis, the senator, I believe, of North Carolina, Tom Tillis said it was time for regime change in Iran, and this is what Charlie Kirk said in response on X. Regime change has quickly become the newly stated goal of this operation. America should learn its lesson and not involve itself in a regime change war. So it's pretty clear that Charlie Kirk was against regime change. Luckily, the conflict with Iran didn't escalate to a regime change war, although it could have, and it looks like Israel is trying to pressure us to attack Iran again. Because let's be honest, that really wasn't it. Us striking Iran really wasn't about the nuclear facilities. It's about eventually creating regime change. And I have a pretty long clip. I'm going to play it all because it's important. And the reason why I'm referencing Charlie Kirk is he's become such an important embodiment of the conservative movement since his tragic assassination. And people will often use his words as sort of an authority about what the administration should or shouldn't do. And I'm seeing people trying to use Charlie Kirk as maybe a justification for taking out Maduro, because Charlie Kirk was critical of Nicolas Maduro, which I understand. Totally fair to be critical of Nicolas Maduro, but that doesn't mean regime change was a good idea, especially if we're going to commit to rebuilding and running Venezuela for many months or years. Could be a disaster. So here's a clip. It's a little bit of a long clip, but I think it's important, about Charlie Kirk explaining why regime change is bad. And this was again in reference when it looked like tensions between us and Iran was looking quite bad. Here's the clip of Charlie Kirk explaining why regime change is a bad idea.
We were told all along by U.S. lawmakers that we need to take out the Iranian nuclear program, and you can make a good argument for that. You can make an argument that Israel has wanted to do that for quite some time. It's becoming more and more clear to the surface that Israel will not be able to finish the fight unless American B-52 bunker-busting bombs will get involved. Okay, you can hold that position, and you can hope for the best. You can hope that there is a strike, and we get in and we get out, and we use the Moab and a 30,000, 40,000 pound bomb, 30,000 pound bomb, and it works perfectly, and hopefully no U.S. troops die in response. I can understand that argument. I really can. President Trump has been consistent for over a decade, saying that Iran will not get a nuclear bomb. Iran will not get a nuclear bomb. President Trump has said that for 10 years. However, if you watch carefully and closely, amongst the Washington, D.C. and neoconservative, neo-imperialist class, especially in the Republican Party, they've kind of shifted gears here. They've shifted gears from Iran should not have a nuclear weapon to Iran should not have an Ayatollah. And they've tried to ever so subtly shift the Overton window as if we weren't paying attention. So wait a second, hold on. First it was that Israel is going to take out the nuclear weapon. And then it was, well, America is going to help Israel take out the nuclear weapon. Still the same theme, but a shift, but still the same theme. One that is defensible if done correctly and prudently. I have some caution towards that intervention, but I can get it. I can get behind that if President Trump executes in a way that only he can. But hold on a second. They're trying to pull a switcheroo. Yesterday afternoon, the neocons that have been wrong about every major foreign policy decision of the last 20 years. They were wrong about Afghanistan. They were wrong about Iraq. They were wrong about Libya. They were wrong about Syria. They were wrong about the Arab Spring. The entire Middle East is filled. It is at capacity with their failures. You cannot point to a random Middle East country without seeing somewhere that John Bolton, Lindsey Graham, and the entire gang of ferocious neoconservatives have messed up. So we've been told it's all about nuclear weapons, but it seems as if there's a more aggressive push to get rid of the Ayatollah. Now, to be clear, of course we on this program want to see the people of Persia resume self-determination. The Persian people are wonderful. They're the highest IQ people on the planet, are right near it. They're incredibly industrious. The Persians that I know across Chicago, where I grew up, or in Phoenix, are amazing. In Scottsdale, they literally have a restaurant called The Persian Room. I get it. But this is a completely different thing. If the people of Persia want to take back their government organically, authentically, from the ground up, we will be cheering them on. Of course we will. But Western-forced central planning regime change is if we are just going to take out the Ayatollah. Oh, really? What comes next? What comes after regime change? Might be, oh, well, we need a small number of U.S. troops to support the new regime. And then, well, the new regime needs our financial support. Then, okay, then we need a few more U.S. troops. We have seen this play before. Or, again, regime change, you have no idea how this is going to work out. You have no idea. The best case scenario is like probably 5,000 U.S. troops and $100 billion. The probably most probable scenario is a bloody civil war that results in a couple 100,000 people dead, all these different ethnic groups fighting. Iran is a country of 92 million people. Let me repeat. Iran is a country of 92 million people. It's 2.5 times the size of Texas. Again, we've been reporting this on our program the last couple of days. It is a beast of a country. Not to mention you could trigger another refugee crisis coming to the West. And so Lindsey Graham, listen very carefully. We went from take out the nuclear program to regime change in just a couple of days. This is why our program is succeeding right now. Because we are taking a non-ideological, patriotic, America First approach right now, where other people are all over the place. No intervention under any circumstances. Okay, I can hear that. I can sympathize with that. But 86% of Americans don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb. Or you have the people that redesign the entire Middle East in their image. Meanwhile, our country is collapsing. Let's play first 342. This is Lindsey Graham. He lives for this, by the way. Lindsey Graham's identity, his reason for being, his excitement, his thrill, is to try and execute regime change in Iran. Play cut 342.
I hope it's eliminated. I would like to see this regime fall, but I'm going to leave it up to the president as to what to do and when to do it. But I do know this. If we don't take out their nuclear program now, we'll all regret it. We're very close. Be all in, Mr. President, in helping Israel finish the job, and let's see where we're at after we neutralize their nuclear program.
Now he continues on cut 343, which is the real incriminating one. I would like to see this regime fall. He says that, but he continues. Play cut 343.
Here's what I can say. Taking the Ayatollah's regime down is a good thing, not a bad thing. And I'm willing to risk what happens next because I know what's going to happen if they stay in power. They're going to keep trying to destroy Israel. They're going to keep fomenting terrorism, and they're going to try to build a bomb, and they'll use it until they're gone. Their goal is a religious goal, to destroy the Jews, to destroy Sunni Islam, to destroy us. These are fanatical religious Nazis. I'm willing to risk them leaving. I think it will only get better.
Sounds good, right? That is such an immature, shallow, sloppy, irresponsible, insane, frenetic approach from a U.S. lawmaker. Oh, I know what happens when they remain. Actually, you don't know that, Lindsey Graham. The first rule of foreign policy is you must enter things with humility. That is the first rule. You don't know how things are going to work out, actually. You could predict them. You can have probability. You could look to history, but you don't know with certainty. And that kind of arrogance and that kind of pride is exactly why we got into the quagmire of Iraq and Afghanistan and why Libya is still in a civil war and why 600,000 people died in the Syrian civil war, resulting in 6 million refugees, largely remaking the polity and the entire demographic composition of Europe because we thought we knew. No, you don't know, actually. In fact, it could be a catastrophe. And I'm going to build out more why we must together resist regime change. It's not about taking out the nuclear program. That's a separate topic. You could support that. That is defensible. It is indefensible after everything we've seen the last 25 years to start beating the drums for regime change at yet another Middle Eastern country, this one being the biggest of all we have dared to get involved in.
So like I said, a little bit of a long clip, but I think it's so important to hear. So as Charlie correctly points out, regime change, particularly in the Middle East, but not just the Middle East, regime change has often been a disaster, not just for the United States, but for the world generally. And one of the best examples, as Charlie mentioned in the clip, was Libya. Libya, you had Gaddafi, and the Obama administration decided that it was best to overthrow Gaddafi because of civil rights abuses, the fact that they thought Gaddafi was going to, I think, do a mass attack on its civilians in Libya. It's not clear that it was actually the case. So the Obama administration, led by Hillary Clinton, who was then the Secretary of State, those freaks overthrew Gaddafi. He was, I believe, sodomized to death very brutally. And it basically created a civil war in Libya that's still going on to this day. I mean, ISIS got involved. It was just a catastrophe, what happened in Libya. And Obama even acknowledged that that was one of his biggest mistakes of his, years in office. Although he said that, but what he claims was the mistake was not actually being more involved, which shows you what a fucking neocon Barack Obama was. Barack Hussein Obama, as Trump would say. Total freak. But Libya was a disaster. Iraq was a disaster. Afghanistan was a disaster. We fucking destroyed the Middle East. That's why we have so much terrorism and why so many people in the Islamic world doesn't like the West. Because we meddle in with these countries and it ends up being more bad than good. Even with Syria, we have this new leader of Syria who is like a former jihadist. It's like insane. And he was in the White House. I mean, regime change is often not good. It ends up backfiring. It's not good for the United States because we end up having to use resources for these other countries no one gives a fuck about in the United States. But instead, Trump said in his press conference, you could look it up, maybe I'll play the clip if I have it, but he said that we're going to have to rebuild Venezuela. We're going to make Venezuela great again. It's like, what the we elected you to be the president of the United States, not the president of South America, of Venezuela. And Trump and Marco Rubio are talking about how the government in Cuba and Colombia, they need to, keep their guard up. They have to, they're not a good government. We're going to fucking do regime change throughout South America. It's like, Marco Rubio's just the worst. He's behind all this. It's because his family's from Cuba and he wants to do regime change, which I understand. And he's hoping that doing regime change in Venezuela will bring us one step closer to doing regime change in Cuba, which is like his life goal, besides being president. Marco Rubio is so terrible. But this could very quickly become a disaster. And if nothing else, because of the politics. Charlie Kirk, he understood what young people supported and what young people didn't support, and young people don't support regime change. With all the problems young people are facing now, the job market is pretty rough. People, even if you go to college, there's no guarantee you're going to get a good job out of college. And if you don't go to college, with a lot of jobs being they're being shipped overseas, they're being automated. It's very rough right now for people in their 20s or people who are graduating from high school, 18, 19, 17. It's tough for them. It's the job market. It's a little bit rough right now. And when the Trump administration looks like they're more concerned about things happening in Venezuela or Iran, it's very bad politically for them. It's not good. It's bad politics. Especially when Trump is saying that we have to rebuild Venezuela's infrastructure. Like, our infrastructure here in the United States is crap. Like, what? Republicans were not for spending on infrastructure in the United States, but Republicans are for spending on infrastructure in Venezuela? It's like the politics of that is just terrible. If the Democrats were smart, which, big question mark, but if they're smart, it's going to be very easy for them to, take back the anti-war mantle, for example. They could do it very quickly. They could even take back maybe not maybe take it back, but become more of the America First Party, at least in terms of rhetoric, whether they believe it or not, if they continue to criticize the Trump administration for being too focused on overseas. This whole thing could blow up very quickly. And look, there's probably going to be more fighting in Venezuela. The opposition party is not in power. Most of the people within Nicolas Maduro's regime are still currently in power. this could escalate much more very quickly. So look, if we had just taken out Maduro, but then wiped our hands clean of it and told Venezuela, you have to figure it out going forward, okay. Not really a fan of it still, but whatever. But this is very tenuous, and the politics of it is awful for the Trump administration. I mean, just forget about the 26 midterms. Republicans are not keeping the House. That's just not going to happen. The Senate, the Republicans have an advantage in the Senate, a built-in advantage, just because of the seats that are up. So that's a different question. But the House is gone. Just forget about it for Republicans. And again, it's just, and there's no guarantee that whoever replaces Maduro ultimately is going to actually be better. If it's going to be better for the Venezuelan people. And you have Trump talking about how we need the oil. We need the oil, folks. The oil, it's so important. We're going to rebuild Venezuela, but then be repaid in oil. It's tremendous, terrific. It's like, dude, he's not even, at least Bush pretended like our Middle Eastern conflicts wasn't about oil and it was about like democracy. Trump doesn't even pretend like, I mean, here's the other thing. Trump pardoned the former president, I believe, of Honduras, who got convicted of drug trafficking. Trump pardoned this guy. And now, all this pretext of bombing all these boats near Venezuela was because of fentanyl, which there's no evidence. A bunch of fentanyl comes from Venezuela, so that was always a ridiculous pretext. But then Trump, and then I believe when Maduro was indicted, there was nothing about drug trafficking or anything like that in New York. I think he was indicted by the Southern District of New York. So the whole drug thing was a bullshit pretext, just like WMB's was a bullshit pretext to go into Iraq. The whole thing, look, and you have Pete Hegseth saying, oh, this was about drugs. Marco Rubio saying this because he's an illegitimate president, and Trump saying this is about oil. The administration doesn't even know what the messaging is. It's not good. And there's already polls that show a plurality of Americans don't support what Trump is doing, or at the very least, they're not sure if they support what Trump is doing. And this is early on. These type of conflicts become less popular over time, not more. So I don't support this. I think we need to listen to Charlie Kirk and we need to leave Venezuela immediately. We took out Maduro. Okay, great. We're done. We're out. We can't do that now because we're responsible now for Venezuela because we took out Maduro. But that's what we should do, is just get out. So anyway, I'm not happy about it. This is a bit of a betrayal from Trump and his campaign promise. I mean, yeah, people in the administration, people like Tulsi Gabbard, Trump himself talking about that we don't do regime change. This is not the neocon old school Republican Party, but Trump just did it, and I don't see the ramifications being very positive. But we'll see what happens. Maybe we should give Trump the benefit of the doubt, but I think we should listen to Charlie Kirk, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, folks. But not very promising. I don't think this is a good development. I really don't. I think if you actually care about America first, you actually cared about the stuff Trump campaigned on, I don't care what Republican congressmen or some of these right-wing grifters who just want access to the Trump administration, I don't care what they say. This is not a good thing for the United States. Maybe a good thing for the Venezuelan people, but I'm sorry, we're America first in the MAGA movement. We're not Venezuela first. So we'll see what happens. But that's it for today, folks. We should be back tomorrow. Again, please subscribe, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. I would greatly appreciate it. Again, if you are listening on YouTube, like and comment helps a lot. We'll be back tomorrow, folks. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.